Hey y'all, Boogie Night here, how's it going? And tonight we are going to explore the graveyard of overused movie cliches and god-awful tropes. While this is definitely not going to be the first time we venture into such a catastrophe zone, the movie I saw tonight set the bar, or perhaps the depth, of how many awful tropes and cliches you can squeeze into one brief action movie. I'm saying action very loosely, and I'm going to get into that. I'm talking about the 2002 movie Ballistic, Ecks versus Sever. There is one cliche right there out of the gate, or overused trope. Having the title of A versus B. We've already seen that in like Mr. and Mrs. Smith. We've seen in other movies. This flick was just bad. It wasn't even awesomely bad like Ninja Champion or American Commando or Night of the Ninja or anything Godfrey Ho has produced and released. This movie I couldn't even laugh at. It was just horribly, horribly done. Now, before you get ahead, before you say, what the hell is this movie? I haven't heard about that before. It, like I said, released in 2002. I didn't even know it existed until my buddy and friend, when I was talking about this week's Force March, he's like, okay, well, this movie got a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I accepted it as a challenge, because, I mean, even The Last Witch Hunter was given a 16% or something like that on Rotten Tomatoes, and I still found it good. Also cliche, but it was a good, mindless, humorless movie. I mean, if you just want to watch stuff blow up and get killed and whatnot with a little to think about, there you go. This movie, for having an all-star cast, was probably what could be only considered the newest version of the 1990s release of The Phantom, and that movie was horrible. I remember seeing it, I guess, I might have been 94, because I just moved back to DC, and I couldn't stop laughing at it, just because of how awful it was put together. This movie was the same thing, but I couldn't even laugh at it, because I've seen good, bad, and awesomely bad action films, and this movie, I couldn't even take it. But, I mean, what do you even expect from a producer and co-director that goes under the pseudonym Kaos, that is K-A-O-S. Now, I get it. The guy's real name is Witch Kaosyananda from Thailand. It's a tough nickname, it's a tough name to come by or to pronounce. But using aliases like Witch, W-I-C-H, or Kaos, like I said with the K, he sounds like he's 2 steps away from putting on corpse paint and going on tour and burning crosses with Abath and Watain. It sounds like a horrible black metal name, yet he's producing, this is not his first, and I really hope it's his last, but I highly doubt it, action thriller movies. I'm using it so quote-unquote because it just was poorly orchestrated, and I'm going to get into all of that. Congratulations, I know some of you have been wanting me to rant and rave about this movie, or a movie during this Force March. Well, you get it. Alright. I'm going to start off with the fact that I couldn't believe this got a 0% rating on Rotten Tomatoes because the all-star cast, and by all-star cast I mean Ecks and Sever, Antonio Banderas as Ecks and Lucy Liu as Severed. How could you go wrong with them? Well, they did. Their personalities were so static and flavorless. You put a glass of water next to them, and the glass of water looks vivacious, I swear. I seriously think neither of them rehearsed their lines because whatever limited dialogue there was between the two was forced and stuttering, much like the choreography for the battle scenes. But just the way their personalities, now of course they're being portrayed as Defense Intelligence Agency agents, and maybe they're supposed to be emotionless or vapid, but it's like somebody pumped Xanax gas into the rehearsal space, so they were stoned out of their minds between the battles. Even in the battle sequences, they were characterless. I don't know how this is done. Antonio Banderas, master swordsman. I loved him in Zorro and the few other movies I saw him in. And Lucy Liu, assassin supreme from Kill Bill, Charlie's Angels. That woman is both sexy and scary at the same time. In this movie, I laughed at her. I thought she had a frontal lobotomy beforehand. And Antonio Banderas, there is one scene that I'm going to get to on the prison bus where it's like he was trying to pose as Verbal / Kaiser Sose at the end of The Usual Suspects, but what it came across as this sheet of cardboard trying to look like Kevin Spacey with a cross between that and Russell Crowe and failing miserably. So, let's get started on the plot. Actually, before I get that out of the way, to answer the burning questions that I'm sure all of you are asking, was this the worst action movie I have ever seen? It's hard to answer that because I'm sure the next question would be, was it worse than Warcraft? Honestly, in the level of boredom between this and Warcraft, if Warcraft still didn't have the need for a glossary or all these extra characters that had no backstory, I would say yes, this movie was worse than Warcraft, but because of all the convoluted stories and the jumping back and forth from humans to orcs and blah, 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 I'm going to go on a limb and say this movie, Ballistic, was on par with Warcraft. Yeah. And I never thought I would say that again. So the next burning question that you're all asking is this worse than God's Not Dead or anything Tyler Perry has released? No. That's the one joy I'm taking away from this piece of garbage, is it was not worse than God's Not Dead or Medea Christmas. Tyler Perry is still one of the worst directors and producers I've ever seen, and don't even get me started at Pure Flicks or the modern day religious exploitation flick. I can at least walk away saying that if it came down to those three movies, Ballistic, Medea, and God's Not Dead, I would still rather sit through this because at least I can see stuff blow up. Poorly rendered stuff blowing up, but stuff blowing up. So, let's get started on the plot now. So, it starts out with trope number one of many. I feel like I should put a counter on here saying how many tropes and movie cliches have gone into it. I know Spoonie does fuse box triggers and counters and whatnot, and maybe I'll eventually go into the trope counter, but let's get started. I keep getting ahead of myself. So it starts out with the mother and son, Vin and Michael, the wife and the son of the Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA director, Gant's house, coming back from a lovely trip to Germany, along with the security detail. Trope number one. High-level intelligence defense having their own security protocol in plain sight. I've spent enough time when I grew up in DC to know those things are not, might as well have a target on their back. And they get wiped out and pretty much obliterated by ex-Special Agent Sever, Lucy Liu. The mother is obviously incapacitated, not killed, but the son is kidnapped. And of course the Director Gant, wants her eliminated. So, rather than just go to any other agent in the DIA, they tap into ex-Agent Ecks. I know, try thinking about that. Washed out agent ever since his wife was killed when he was on a mission. So, he's basically tapped into, not by Director Gant, but by his former boss, who, here comes another trope. I think it was his number 4 or 5 at this point, during the corpse, that movie really was a corpse, during the tone of the movie, saying that, I'll tell you what, if you take out ex-Agent Sever, not for any other reason, just because he's there, or to quote Film Brain, because the plot says so. he will tell Special Agent Ecks where his supposed dead wife is. He left the agency after his wife was supposedly killed on mission, and years later, rather than be told that his ex-wife is still alive and is only missing in action, they just say, oh, by the way, if you do this little favor for us, we'll tell you where she is. Great! So, of course, he wants to see his, supposedly late dead wife after all this time has elapsed. And all he has to do is kill Agent Sever. What could possibly go wrong? So from that point on, he's tracking down Agent Sever, and there are you have your battle scenes after this point that are just so poorly orchestrated. There's a scene when they're fighting on the rooftop, and Ecks is trying to get his gun, and there's just a flurry of bullets all over this place, like Michael Bay sneezed all over it. And I literally see him trip over the gun he's trying to pick up. Did you not rehearse any of these scenes? Or did you just get hammered and thought, let's shoot this sort of thing? This is the sort of thing people do in high school. This is the sort of thing that people would do on Jackass. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So, during the course of this, and they find out, of course, Director Gant's son is alive, it turns into not a rescue mission, but Michael has a secret super weapon inside his body known as Soft Kill. Why don't they just call this movie, call this MacGuffinite? Because this essentially becomes the whole central focus of the whole movie from that point on. It's just, that's the MacGuffin. Nobody even cares about the Director Gant's son's life anymore, as long as they get this weird super weapon that apparently can cause a heart attack right on command. Because bullets and everything else don't work, they have to do something that looks like a natural cause, because that always goes. So, Ecks is traveling after Sever. They're getting into fights here and there, blah, 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 blah. Oh, and a point I left out at the beginning, when they introduce Sever, not by who she is doing the assassinations of the security detail or the abduction of Gant's son, when Ecks is being briefed, they find out that Sever, like I said, is an ex-DIA agent, but she was, and this is an, I quote, no fear, no conscience, and no morality. There's a promotional bell ringer for you right there. Because sure, we trained a secret agent, and she's a sociopath. What could possibly go wrong? Lots. So, here come the parade of plot twists. After one of the battles, Ecks gets detained and arrested, and here we go, the prison bus scene that I'm talking to you about. He's sitting on the prison bus, hands handcuffed in front of him, complete dead mask stare. Like, I keep going back to the fact that it looks like he was dope, because he has this permanent, like, the scene in The Green Mile when they go to pick up Wild Bill from the mental institution, and he looks completely just zoned out, much like I probably felt during the course of watching this piece. He had this whole look, a combination of Wild Bill looking stoned and Malcolm McDowell at the end of Clockwork Orange when that little sociopathic grin that still haunts my nightmares comes out. And somehow during the course of this, he's picking the lock and trying to his handcuffs underneath the seat, and because he's in the middle of the bus driver and the security guard at the front of the bus can't see them. If he's the only person on the bus, why put him in the middle where there are shields covering him or masks that you can't see what he's doing? You know he's a special agent working for the DIA. You're just screaming at the chance to get destroyed by him. Haven't you guys seen the Bourne series or the Bond series or Brian De Palma's Mission Impossible? I'm not even going to talk about John Woo. That's a whole different category of bad action movies. And at this time frame, completely out of the blue for major plot twist again, Sever is on an overpass, a regular, crowded, busy traffic and pedestrian overpass with a rocket launcher in the open. Because apparently walking around with rocket launchers in Canada is common. Sure, why not? And people are walking by here like she just went to the store for a loaf of bread. I'm sorry, I didn't know Trump had taken over Canada before he started running for president of the U.S. Just openly carrying weapons. Makes perfect sense. But somehow, in the middle of the bus, while he's trying to take off his handcuffs, he sees her a couple of 100 yards in the distance, because apparently this guy also fought in the war and has the natural 1,000-yard stare. So she blows up the bus, not to kill him, but to set him free. Because they go from trying to kill each other, like Mr. and Mrs. Smith, to helping each other. And then it's finally explained. Director Gant's son is not technically his son. He's X's son. And Director Gant's wife is his wife. Because she was told by Director Gant that Ecks was killed on a mission at the same time that Ecks was told his wife was killed on a mission. She married Director Gant, changed her name from Ray to Vin, you know, one syllable, 4 letters. Sure, you couldn't tell that right at the beginning, that there would be no other reason that she wasn't killed. And that Director Gant also killed Sever's entire family. But Sever is not trying to kill Gant or do anything to harm Gant's son. She's trying to protect him and the mother from Director Gant, because Director Gant only wants the soft kill, because I guess he doesn't care at all about his family, as long as that he retains the MacGuffin that you don't take care of until the last 3, 4, 5 minutes of the movie. So all of a sudden, instead of working together, or instead of killing each other, they work together. Because Churchill said it best: it's better to have an enemy on the inside of the tent pissing out than outside pissing in. And the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Personally, I would slap a kill switch on her and make her take me there, and then we can talk business, because she tried to kill me this entire time. Because all of a sudden, from going to have no fear, no morality, and no conscience, to having no fear, morality, and conscience, sure, why not? Let's just do a 180 degree, like we suddenly kicked the rabies, and we're good people. So she leads Ecks to his I don't even know at this point. Because there are these horribly just shot back and forth scenes between Ecks and Sever and their plight, to finding out about the soft kill MacGuffin, to finding out about why young Gant has this in his body to begin with, which is revealed at the end. He didn't know he had this. Director Gant implanted it in him so he could smuggle Gant Jr., former Ecks Jr., into the United States for reasons not to be declared. It's not like he's using this to destroy certain parts of the population or use it against high-profile criminals or terrorists. It just says that he needs it. Hooray! At this point, my eyes almost rolled straight out of their skull, because I lost count about how many tropes and cliches were in this movie. And how many times things were happening just because the plot says so. So at the end, Director Gant shows up with pretty much his Stasi, his secret police, to erupt in this all-out gun battle with Sever and Ecks, with the wife, the shared wife at this point, and the shared kid at this point, like it's something out of Waco to have this all crazy, all-out gun battle. with the people watching desperately, and somehow Gant gets to hit the kid and tries to remove, in the midst of a gun battle, the soft kill, the MacGuffin, heart attack on a disc, the horseshoe pocket in lethal format. But no, somehow during this process, which is not explained to any of us, the soft kill had been removed without a trace, without surgery, without a band-aid, without any kind of marks to find out how it was done. Just because suddenly there it is, maybe he ate too much roughage and finally decided to poop it out, but it was never explained. So the MacGuffin finally takes a sharp approach, and lo and behold, Sever decides to go Arnold Schwarzenegger from True Lies and shoots him with a bullet made out of, wait for it, soft kill. Yeah. So amidst all this violence with the secret police being destroyed and Director Gant finally being killed by Sever in an act of retribution, end scene, fade to black without any reconciliation about what happens. At this point, I was praying for the credits, but no. One final scene, and Ecks and Sever are standing on a bridge after all of this, which almost reminded me about the end of, what's it called, Underworld, when Kate Beckinsale finishes killing the Elder and just walks away, fade to black. The most anticlimactic climax I have ever seen in an action film. Fast and the Furious had more of a climax than this, and I absolutely loathe the entire series. But at the end, Ecks and Sever are standing on a bridge, and Ecks just says, "Thank you for helping me find my family." Walk away, roll credits, nothing else explained other than the fact, here's what the plot is telling me to watch, and that's it. I have seen some mindless action movies in my time, mainly anything James Cameron has done, but this movie was definitely not a 0, in my opinion, but if Last Witch Hunter was 16%, this movie was probably no more than 5%. This was beyond mindless action. This was just poorly orchestrated, graphically done action scenes where it's literally raining bullets in one area that makes the Matrix look like a walk through a flower garden between two brain-dead, emotionless sociopaths. Give me something to follow. Throw in Jack Scalia. At least he has personality. I would even settle for Brad Sanders doing the voice of Tequila to make a cameo. Anything. There wasn't even any humor in this movie. In every action movie that I've seen, there is at least some level of humor, no matter how dry it is. I'll give you an example. Miniseries Band of Brothers, Episode 2, when Lieutenant Winters is walking through the forest after his plane is shot down, and he's walking with the private, and they're trying to make use of their bearings, and the private is, you know, definitely a little nervous because they're getting shot at from all over them. And Winters is saying very calmly, you know, keep your eyes peeled for road signs, houses, bridges, roads, trees, and they're in the middle of the forest. Okay, I laughed at that because I've got a dry sense of humor. 30 seconds after that, the private's like, well, not even 30 seconds, maybe like 10. He goes, I wonder how many everybody else is lost as we are. And Winters again goes, well, we're not lost. We're in Normandy. I've used something like that. It is pretty funny when you're middle getting shot at. But I think the only line that kind of made me smirk a little was when Ecks meets up with Sever, and she's loaded to the brim with firearms. And he goes, completely calm, where'd you get all that ordnance? And she goes, some women buy shoes. Yeah, no, maybe it was just because I was tired because I had a long work day. I even smirked at more Medea lines and antics than that. And this movie was still better than Medea. So to my friend Bob, who recommended this to me, you tried to break my spirits, and you came damn close. But this movie's not even worth watching. It's not worth Redboxing. It's not worth Netflixing. This is like what you would do at the holidays when you have a fruitcake. What do? You give it to somebody you don't like. Now, if I hadn't already given away some horrible movies like Cannibal Holocaust, Island of Death, Green Inferno, things like that, this movie would be on my A game, and it's going to be lodged in the back for giving away to somebody who has earned my wrath. But overall, you've heard it from me, and maybe I'm not doing this justice because of how irritated I am. And maybe overused tropes, cliches, and not having to think about the plot does it for you. I don't know. You know, some people find necrophilia attractive. Personally, I wouldn't be caught dead with that, but hey, Rule 34, if you can come up with an idea, there's a porno for it. So, that being said, I'm gonna go watch something that's actually worth watching, something I haven't quite gotten into it. This is a night I might even have to turn back on a Godfrey Ho movie just because I need something to cleanse my palate of this horrible action movie that still was better than Medea or God's Not Dead. Damn it! So, that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm praying that the next two movies I see coming up tomorrow and Thursday are going to wash this away. If not, I got a bottle of bleach hidden under the sink. So guys, have a good night. I'll catch you on the flip side. Peace.